You are listening to the Cresco Wealthcast, a podcast brought to you by Cresco Wealth Management of Wellington Altus Private Wealth. I'm your host, Dimitri Karolis, and I wanted to bring a podcast from the world of wealth that was really just easy to follow. And from time to time, I'm going to be bringing in members of the team. We'll be bringing in external guests and really providing some good information that are inspired from those coffee talk conversations that not just we're having, but that you're having as well. You can follow the podcast on www.cresco.podbean.com, or if you're on Spotify, you can just search for the Cresco Wealthcast. And last but not least, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel on Instagram, which is at The Finance Greek. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. We have a very special episode today. This one, I love talking about awards. I love talking about accolades. I love talking about the people that I work with, the people that you work with, and the people that we want you to work with. Today we have Jennifer Williams and Sheena Schreiner, Cresco Wealth Management advisors. Not just advisors, but now I can proudly say award-winning, top 50 leading women in wealth, not just in Alberta, not Western Canada, across Canada. Yeah, now we can clap.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you.
So I wanted to give a really good introduction because I think that this is such an important award on so many levels. The first thing is I want to do a podcast about it. I want you two to talk about it. Let's go first. You get an email. You didn't apply for it. I think that's very important, is that we didn't apply for this award to say, hey, I really like to win it. But you get this email saying, hey, you have been selected 2 of the 50 on one team. Jennifer, we'll start with you. How did you feel when you saw it?
It was a huge honor to think that, I started in this industry back in 2001. So in the just over 20 years, to think that this is where I am today. It's an honor.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I started in the industry same time as Jennifer, and at that point, I never would have envisioned something like this in the future. So, it's definitely a big honor to be recognized as a leading woman in wealth, for sure.
Let's pivot into a really good talking point here to say you would never have envisioned something like this for yourselves. Part of it, let's address it. It's a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
It's one where you really have to wait in line, or you just hear that few and far between story of a female advisor, a female leading advisor. Does that make it that much more special? Do you feel you have that chip on your shoulder saying, yeah, you know what? It's about time that we get recognized?
I think so. I think as a woman as well, it's hard to believe that you're ever good enough, right? And there's some of that, that I think in this industry especially, being at a table with the advisors, with our investment committee, which really 6 out of 8 are male. Yeah. I do feel that we're lucky with the team that we're at, because our voice does matter and have equal weight.
So I think it's leading up into this point. I think it's been a lot of male mentorship that's gotten us to this point. And so I always do have to express gratitude for the men that have also cleared the path for us to get here, because there haven't been enough women to clear the path for us. And so, I'm super grateful that I've been very lucky to have the men in our lives that have brought us to this point as well, and recognized that we need more women in these advisory roles as well, and that we do bring something valuable to the table.
Mentorship is massive anywhere that you go. And a lot of what happens with mentorship is someone actually taking the time to show you in the ropes, or taking time to believe in what you're doing to help get you to that finish line. I don't know if in our business there's ever a finish line. I think it's a constant hamster wheel until we decide to get off of it. But who were some of your mentors, or some of the experiences that you look back and say, you know what, thank goodness I did this, and I carry it with me from a lifetime. So you could be a specific person, or again, just an event. Sheena, let's change it. Let's start with yourself.
Yeah, so when I started my career, I started at Scotiabank way back in my, I think I was 18 at the time, and, just wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And so I was working at a bank, and someone had recognized, it's actually someone who's an advisor with Canaccord now, but he recognized that, Sheena, you're really good with people and you have these really great skills. I think you would be great. At the time it was working my way into a personal, what do you call it? Personal banking officer, I think is the title at the time. And for me, I was like, I never saw myself in a role like that. And it was just those little things along the way where someone kind of just gave me that extra nudge that I needed to push me where I didn't believe in myself, but someone saw something in me enough that they were like, well, why not? Why not give it a shot? And every time that I've tried it, it's pushed me into the next level. And so it's all of those little nudges that have gotten me here.
Awesome. And Jennifer, how about for yourself?
I started with a small team, a boutique brokerage firm back in the early 2000s. And what I saw looking back now is really the male advisors I felt were so successful, and we were such a successful team because a lot of the women on the team, whether it was the associate role, the role at a reception, really making clients have a lot of those intangibles that are important, right? With peace of mind, comfort, and which is, so I had to kind of make a pivot at some point in my career to be able to grow more because I feel it was somewhat capped at that team. But looking back, but there was a lot of mentors on that team as well that were in women roles, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You just saw the potential.
Is mentorship in the plan for the two of you now? Especially after receiving an award like this, do you look and say, wow, it's a great accolade, but it's important to give back one day or continually give back even now to a degree?
Yeah, I wish that we had more women that, helped us along the way as well. So if I can be a mentor to someone else who's feeling unsure and wants to kind of get some tips and things to get them more involved in the advisory role, then absolutely, that would be an honor to be that person.
Yeah.
And whether it's a young woman or a young man, right? To come in and hear how we're communicating with clients, what we're doing for planning, and all of that, so they can shadow us and it's important for both genders.
So I think it's amazing that we have two advisors on the team that have won this award. I think it's unprecedented. I would really like to go into the full details. I don't think that happens. But I have to ask this. If one of you got it over the other, is there animosity? Because you two work so closely together. I'm just trying to do something for ratings here. I'm just trying to spread. No.
You know what? Okay, so here's the thing. So when the email first came out, the email came to me first, and I was truly bummed because I wanted to share it with Jenny, and so it wasn't as exciting for me until Jenny then got the email a little bit later.
But we
Fair
had to
enough.
actually have a little chat in Sheena's office because I wanted her to know how happy I was for her, right? So we already went through that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine though if you get the email and you just come busting in and you're like, I told you I'm the best there is, I'm the best around here.
No. And
I'm trying to have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think for Jennifer and I, we've come up together, and it's been so important, I think, for us both to have this together as well. Yeah.
I think it's super cool.
And sorry, and I wanted to add too, Sheena and I each have our unique strengths as well, right? Which is why we are a great team.
Yeah.
Which, she will come to my office for certain questions and I'll go to her office for certain questions.
No, let's call it what it is. You don't go to each other's offices. You have one wall that separates you, and you act like an apartment building, and it's so comical to me. And I absolutely love it. Okay, that's a good point, Jennifer. You each have unique skills. I think every advisor comes with something that they bring to the table, skill-wise, personality-wise. But let's talk about some of those skills. What does it take to be a good advisor? You know, we've won this award. That's great, but it came off the back of a lot of hard work. And what does it take? What can you attribute? What do we do day in, day out? What did the two of you day in, day out that make that connection and service?
Yeah, it's really about the relationships with the clients and understanding what their needs and goals are, and building a plan around that to make sure that we can reach those goals. And so then there's all the little things in between that get us there. And I think Jenny can touch on some of that as well.
Yeah, and what is important to the clients as well. It's great to know the needs and the goals. However, what is important to them? Is it more of a sense of control? Is it a sense of, is it more on the self-care? These are all important, right? And like I say, there's so many tangibles and intangibles with what we do.
So do you find then, we talked about the workplace and the landscape about working with women in wealth. From the client side, do you find that a lot of women tend to gravitate towards you being female advisors? Do you find it's a mix of both? Do you find it's typically more men? Do you find that there is, from a client side, a certain level of customer attraction, if you will?
So part of what Jennifer and I are really passionate about is getting more women involved in the conversation, because the reality is more conversations are being had with the male counterparts, or just men in general, tend to be more involved in the conversation around wealth management. And so part of what Jennifer and I really want to focus on and empower women is to bring women in, have conversations where it's, a safe environment. No question is a dumb question, where, we can answer these questions that maybe have kept women from being part of that conversation in the past.
Yeah,
and one boost to women, this is data from Visa that was put out that, really, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and the Barbie movie last year did keep the U.S. out of a recession.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. That is not a joke. Okay, empowering women, getting together, building a sense of community. Aren't the two of you are doing a series of things coming up here very quickly? I think, isn't there a Woman in Wealth? I believe it's in December that you're working. Can we talk about that? I think that's a perfect segue into an initiative you two are doing.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be the first of many. So for the first one, we're mostly opening this up to some friends and some close business associates.
You have trial run face right now.
Yeah. We're a little bit like, we want to make sure that we, work out the tweaks and kinks and things like that before we put it out. But we're planning to do this every 2 months, so that we can put this out to other women, and hopefully it becomes, a bigger regular event that more people will want to come to.
And empowering women around money, and also it's a smaller event, so there's no stupid questions, and if there's any nervousness, it's a very welcoming environment.
Yeah, what are some of the barriers? I mean, I would imagine there's a generation of women that didn't know anything. That's, if we go back, I hate to pick on the 60s, that's just where my mind goes when you do an analogy. But there was a generation of women where the man's handling the finances, handling work, whatever the case is. And so from that, you get people that just don't know. Mm-hmm. And now you have people that know or are learning. But when you're holding an event like this or trying to educate, teach, and empower, what are those barriers that you're seeing today?
So still over 70% of women feel that they don't have a good grasp on their wealth management or understanding investing and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that women are the ones that are more at risk because we live longer. There's also divorce. We take time off to not only look after children, but aging parents as well, or other family members. We tend to be the caregivers in the family. And so there's a lot of different circumstances that women face that could be a detriment to their long-term goals in retirement. And so, we should in fact be more involved in the conversation conversation. And so that's part of why we want to be getting in front of this, so that, you know, we don't want it to be left to the point of the event happening, and you're left scrambling at one of probably the most stressful points in your life, whether it be, you know, a death or divorce, right? You want to be more involved in that conversation before something like that happens.
Yeah, and I think having a solid plan in place leads to less behavioral mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. Absolutely. And I think we'll end it on this one here. Anyone who's listening you're more than welcome to reach out to Jennifer and Sheena if you want to talk about the women in wealth. If you just have questions like you talked about at the top of this podcast and saying, you know what, I'm having these feelings too. I have some questions. Reach out to them. The information is on CrescoWealthManagement.com. We'll also leave their emails in the script here of the podcast. But again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for your time. This will be one, I think, of many episodes. I think as you start to do the women in wealth, I'd really like to get the two of you back in here and talk about it, because even the point you just made, it's crazy to think that just by statistics, females have a shorter timeline to accumulate wealth and wealth generation, and that could be a big headwind. So follow us on our channels at Cresco Wealth Management on the Instagram, at The Finance Greek, my personal Instagram as well, Spotify, Cresco.podbean.com. This is the Cresco Wealthcast. We'll see you in about a week.